Batman Vengeance is a game that I have some history with. I rented this game back when it was relatively new, around 2001. I played it for a whole week, and embarrassingly, I couldn't get past the first few levels. This is one of those games that I tried to play, and it completely defeated me, and I was so completely flummoxed by this game that over the years it stuck into my head. It was one of those games that I always wondered about and always wanted to take another crack at someday. Well, one day I was browsing through my local V-Stock store, your one-stop shop for comics, books, movies, and used video games, and I found a copy of Batman Vengeance for $10. So here's my chance. I can finally go back and finish that game that defeated me. The game gets off to a promising start story-wise, as Batman rescues a woman named Mary from being exploded in a chemical plant. He finds a ransom note from the Joker threatening that he'll kill her son unless she coughs up $5 million. Batman returns to the Batcave while he tells Batgirl to begin researching Mary while he runs through a training course, and the game begins a little training stage so that you can get used to the controls. Right off the bat, a huge red light goes off telling me that this game is going to suck. The first thing that you're told to do in the training stage is use the bat grapple to climb to the top of the room. You'd think this would be a simple task, but get this. To use the grapple, you have to press the R button to enter gadget mode, cycle through gadgets until you find the grapple, then use the C stick to aim the grapple at the giant white target. Why the hell can't I just push a button and automatically grapple to the target? You have to make me fiddle around with this bat crap insane interface? Switch to gadget mode, switch to the grapple, and then aim the grapple at the target. Why do I have to do that? There's only one grapple target in the room! There's always only one grapple target in the room! Once you enter gadget mode, the game shifts into a first-person shooter mode, which so does not belong in a Batman game. You turn and aim using the C-stick, and the controls are way too sensitive, so it takes several seconds to get yourself aimed properly just to use one gadget. And this is the only way that you can use your gadgets. Every time that you want to use a Batarang or the Bat Grapple or whatever, you have to put up with this stupid first-person mode. Who the hell thought this was a good idea? Switch to a first-person mode for the sole purpose of using gadgets. That's freaking stupid! Speaking of gadgets, all of the gadgets in this game suck. Batman Vengeance falls into the trap of every gadget having one, and only one, very limited function. Let's take a look at Batman's arsenal of gadgets. Batarangs are used to disarm armed enemies, and they don't do anything else. Electric Batarangs are used to insta-kill Poison Ivy's plant goons, and they don't do anything else. Remote electrical charges are used to fight two of the game's bosses, and they don't do anything else. Stunners are used to insta-kill cops, and they don't do anything else. And nets, I don't even know what nets do because I've never found any. They do not exist. I know that I've probably been spoiled by the Arkham games that not only allow you to use gadgets all the time, they require you to use gadgets all the time, but it still feels out of place that most of your gadgets are so useless. Also, to make sure that you don't use gadgets for anything other than their intended purpose, all of your gadgets require ammo, and the game never gives you any ammo unless you're absolutely required to use said gadget. But that's not even touching on the gadget that I loathe and despise most in the entire game, the bat cuffs. As you might expect, the entire game is full of enemies that want you dead, and not fanboys that want your autograph. Once you beat up an enemy and knock them unconscious, you have to restrain the guy with bat handcuffs, or a few seconds later the guy gets up and starts punching you again. One would think that getting punched about 25 times in the face by the goddamn Batman, a thug will remain unconscious longer than 30 seconds, but no. What's better is that you can only carry about 3 pairs of bat cuffs at a time, and towards the second half of the game, which is when the enemies are strongest, you're going to run out of bat cuffs all the time. What was wrong with just having thugs stay down after they've been knocked out? You know, like every other video game that's ever been made? Wow, I need to pace myself. I ranted already. Anyway, Batgirl doesn't find any clues about Mary, and Batman decides to stake out Mary's apartment. She gets abducted again, and Batman gives chase, so the real game finally starts. Batman Vengeance is mostly a platforming game as you make your way around obstacles and frequently leap across rooftops. The only problem is that the game's controls are a little slippery, and when I play, Batman falls to his death a lot. And I do mean a lot. It doesn't help that you have almost zero control over the camera. Moving the control stick causes the camera to snap behind Batman, and if you're in any kind of enclosed space, the camera snaps right back to where it was after you release the stick. The platforming itself isn't bad, but it lacks challenge and it's not very stimulating. Batman rescues Mary and gives her a radio device, and sure enough, a few hours later she gets abducted again and she's taken to the Gotham Bridge. This is actually the level that I got stuck on the first time that I played because I couldn't figure out where the hell I was supposed to go. It looks like I should be able to climb up these crates, right? Well, I can't. For some bizarre reason, this game is not programmed so that Batman can climb on any ledge that's within reach. He can only climb on certain ledges that the game deems climbable, if that makes any sense. I spent ages trying to climb over these crates so that I could go further into the level before I figured out that you're not supposed to climb onto these crates. What you're supposed to do is sneak against a wall and go through this crevice in the wall that you can barely see. Great. Just beautiful. So you chase the Joker up the bridge and you have a boss fight against the Joker. He swings around on a wrecking ball and the only way to damage him is to chuck batarangs at him, which means you spend this entire fight stuck in the awful first-person mode. Not only does it suck having to spend this entire fight in the first-person mode with overly sensitive controls, but why is it that this boss fight revolves around the gadget mode instead of a regular fight? Also, at 3 points during the fight, the Joker uses the wrecking ball to smash a part of the level. If you didn't know that, and you're standing in the wrong place at the wrong time, you die and have to start the fight over. It's just a beginner's trap. I hate it when games do that! It turns out that Mary is actually Harley Quinn in disguise, which you already figured out if you paid attention to the title card. Joker and Harley tried to kill Batman, but something goes wrong and the Joker falls to his death, thus ending part 1 of the story. The game's story is split into 5 acts, which are pretty much intended to be individual episodes. I'll talk about the rest of the episodes later, but for now, I can't hold back on this anymore. We need to talk about the game's combat. I despise this game's combat system. Whenever you run into an enemy, the camera locks into a position so that you're always facing your opponent, basically another special mode for fighting enemies. You can press the B button to punch a guy in the face, and you can press the A button to kick him in the balls, and it makes absolutely no difference whether you hit him in the face or the balls. Sometimes enemies will block and sometimes they don't. None of your attacks can penetrate an enemy's block. You just mash buttons and it doesn't matter at all what attacks you use. None of the enemies telegraph their attacks. None of the enemies have discernible patterns to their attacks. Fighting enemies is a complete guessing game. There is absolutely no strategy to the combat. All you can do is mash buttons and hope for the best. And as the game goes on and the enemies get stronger and stronger, the inexact nature of the combat becomes a big problem. The game tells you in the training stage that you can avoid fighting an enemy altogether by sneaking up behind them and bat-cuffing them, pretty much telling you that you have the option of using stealth to take down enemies instead of always fighting them. There's just one problem. There is no such thing as stealth in this game. Most of the rooms in the game are designed without any cover, and there's no way to take cover even if you manage to find some. There is no way to sneak up on enemies, and guess what? To give this game the benefit of the doubt, I actually did manage to sneak up on an enemy with a pair of bat cuffs. I got right up behind her without getting detected, and I tried to use the bat cuffs, and nothing happened. Absolutely nothing happened. Either Alfred was drunk when he wrote the training program, or somebody on the game's development team forgot that they were going to put stealth into their Batman game. As you get closer to the end of the game and the enemies get stronger and stronger, the game gives you flashbangs to help you out in combat. Except I bought this game used, and the asshole who owned the game before me didn't see fit to put the game's instruction manual back into the box, so I have no idea how the hell you use flashbangs. Batman also has some special moves that you can use to lay a beat down on a guy if the meter below your health bar is filled up, except the game is glitched so that if you try to use a special attack during a hectic fight, it doesn't work. The combat of this game is absolute bat guano, and newsflash, this is a Batman game! Combat is kind of the one thing that you need to get right! And the game's crappy combat really is a big problem because that's all this game is. You run through a level, the platforming that you're required to do is not very impressive, you beat up bad guys, and you move on. Non-strenuous platforming and horrendous combat are the only two things that you do throughout most of the game. So the combat sucks, the gadget system sucks, the platforming is mediocre, the gameplay as a whole of Batman Vengeance is terrible. It's not punishingly bad because the game is at least functional, but the game is just dull. There's not a whole lot to it, and what little is there isn't very good. So since I'm not going to get my money's worth out of the game from the actual gameplay, I'll have to try and get my money's worth out of the game's story. Like I said, the game is divided into 5 episodes. The first is called A Girl to Die For, and it ends with the Joker falling to his death. The second episode is called In Cold Blood, and I'll give you 3 guesses as to who the villain is. Mr. Freeze gets a videotape with an advertisement for Promethium, a chemical that restores life to people who have been cryogenically frozen, implying that with the current technology, there is no way to wake up somebody who's been cryogenically frozen. So if you get cryogenically frozen, there is no way for anybody to wake you up. Huh. Anyway, Mr. Freeze attacks the Doctor who makes Promethium, and Batman stops him. In the process, you get to play a level where you fly the Batwing, and this level sucks! There's a portion of this level where you have to fly through a highway, and if you so much as clip a single street sign, you immediately die. Hey Batman, you have an airplane! There are literally infinite directions that you could fly to chase Mr. Freeze that don't involve flying through a small tunnel that there's a ton of stuff to crash into! Brilliant! Batman investigates the Promethium Doctor and finds out that 1. The Promethium research was being funded by the Joker, and 2. Promethium is unstable, but the Doctor is pushing it out anyway. What does the Doctor have to say for himself? I don't know, because neither Batman nor Mr. Freeze confront the Doctor about his activities, so whatever weight this story could have had is flushed down the toilet. Then you fight Mr. Freeze, and this boss fight revolves entirely around the first-person gadget mode as you use the remote electrical charge to make barrels fall onto Mr. Freeze's head. You know, even though this gadget mode sucks on toast, this boss fight is actually pretty good. The third chapter of the game is called Plant Food. Poison Ivy gets a vial of Promethium and tests it on a plant, which somehow mutates the plant into a man-eating monster. Because a medicinal chemical that is meant for cryogenically frozen patients can totally mutate plants into man-eating monsters. You know, the word unstable does not mean does whatever the hell we want it to. Batman rescues Batgirl from some goons on a train, and despite the fact that they're fighting clearly inhuman green monsters, it doesn't occur to Batman that they might be dealing with Poison Ivy until they find a mutated apple at a crime scene. World's greatest detective, my ass. You also have to chase down a thug in the Batmobile, and this level sucks because you have to use the L and R buttons to fire a grapple every time that you need to make a turn, and if you miss a single turn, you fail the mission. Are you telling me that the Batmobile is so clunky and unmaneuverable that Batman has to fire a grappling hook into a wall every time that he wants to make a simple turn? Bruce, I get that it looks cool, but invest in something practical, man. Batman heads to the chemical plant to fight Poison Ivy, and midway through the level, Batgirl calls you to tell you that Harley told her that Poison Ivy's plants are vulnerable to electricity. I already knew that because I could use electric batarangs to one-shot kill Poison Ivy's goons in the previous level. I didn't figure that out on accident, the game expects you to do that. So then you fight a giant plant by chucking batarangs at it in the awful first-person mode. There's just one tiny problem. Nothing I do is damaging this thing. The only thing that you can throw batarangs at in this fight are the monster's tentacles, which doesn't hurt it. I thought that you had to throw batarangs at multiple tentacles at once so that it would let go with multiple tentacles and then fall into what appears to be a pit of lava, but that doesn't work either. So what the hell do I do? You know what? Screw it. I'm getting tired of this game, so I'm going to look it up in a walkthrough. Throw batarangs at the pipes! What in the hell are you talking about? At no point up until now have I had to interact with the scenery to progress through the game. How in the hell was I supposed to figure that out? This game is dumb. The next episode is called Fool's Grave. Some of the Joker's thugs are at the gasworks trying to burn down the city, so you go and beat the crap out of them. Then the cops all try to attack you, so you go and beat the crap out of them. Batman finally decides to investigate the Joker's last known hideout, but he needs a clever disguise to elude the cops. Wow. A small fake beard and a fake scar over one eye. That's really going to keep people from recognizing the city's most famous genius billionaire playboy philanthropist? Do you know how sad it is that Batman is a less credible master of disguise than Pistachio Disguisey? Actually, strike that. Do you know how sad it is that maybe 5 people watching this video actually got that reference? So you sneak into the warehouse and you find out, are you sitting down, that the Joker isn't actually dead. Wow! Any person with a working brain figured that out a long time ago. Let's review the clues, shall we? The Joker was funding research into Promethium, Harley's tracking device ended up on Mayor Hill, which is what led Batman to poison Ivy, Harley told you how to kill Ivy's plants, the Joker's men snuck into the gasworks, Harley told you about the Joker's men sneaking into the gasworks, and the game at no point introduces another character or suggests any other villain might be behind this plot. This game's entire story falls flat on its face because it's so obvious that the Joker is behind this plan, and while you're playing the game, you don't think for a second that the Joker is actually dead. Hell, even Batman doesn't think that the Joker is dead. To directly quote the video game, Batman says that he's just playing along until he figures out what's going on. If this game's entire story hinges on the player believing that the Joker is dead, then maybe the game should put some effort into making the player think that the Joker is actually dead! And really, if the whole is the Joker dead mystery is stripped out of the game's plot, what story does this game have? Batman beats up the Joker, Batman beats up Mr. Freeze, Batman beats up Poison Ivy, and Batman beats up the Joker again. Because the Joker's death is so awfully executed, that's all the story that this game has. A lot of people praise this game for its story because the game was adapted from Batman the Animated Series, but Batman the Animated Series and Batman Beyond on their worst days had way better stories than this game. Batman Vengeance's story never evolves past Batman fights villain X, and the animated series was always better than that. Batman Vengeance's story isn't awful as far as video games go. It kept me engaged enough to want to keep playing the game, but I'm sorry, the game's story is nothing more than serviceable. It's not that good, especially not when you compare it to its source material. So then you move on to the final episode of the game, Infernal Jest. You run into the Joker, who explains his master plan, and the dialogue of this game is so poorly written that I wouldn't have understood the Joker's explanation if I hadn't played the Game Boy Advance version of the game. The Joker sent Mr. Freeze the Promethium advertisement so that he'd attack Gotham Industrial, and in the chaos the Joker stole some Promethium. He sent Poison Ivy the Promethium so that she'd become a big threat, and Batman would clear her out of the chemical plant so that the Joker could go there and make some Joker Toxin. He funded Promethium research because he somehow figured out that the Promethium and Joker Toxin combine to make flamethrower fuel. Sure, why not? They're dangerous chemicals. They can do whatever the hell we want them to. He attacked the gasworks so that he could steal a blimp, and because Batman opening the gasworks flood pipe somehow helps the Joker's plan, I don't know. This game is stucking foopid. After explaining his master plan, the Joker runs away because he's a wuss, and two brick shithouses come out to fight you. Geez, the heavy would tell these guys to lay off the sandwiches. What the hell is going on? Jeez, I'm getting my ass kicked. Yeah, this is the level where the enemies are strongest, and this is the point where the game's random luck combat system becomes a massive problem. Every time that I try to fight these enemies, I get my ass kicked. These enemies have attacks that are so fast that they can stun lock you and take away a ton of your health, and there isn't a damn thing you can do about it. Blocking doesn't help because you still take damage when blocking, and enemies will grab you right through your block, and super moves don't help because, for reasons that have not been explained, the game does not let you use special attacks unless it's in a good mood. I mash the button combination to execute the special attack and get the upper hand. It doesn't work, and I take a ton of damage because the enemies have now stun locked me! In desperation, I ended up looking up online walkthroughs to try and find hints on how to kill these goons. The first two goons that you run into have a pattern where they punch 3 times, then uppercut, which is your chance to attack them back. Okay, fine, I would never have figured that out, but fine. As for the rest of the baddies, every single walkthrough that I could find actually recommends running away from the other enemies in this level. You see, the game's combat is so broken and the enemies are so overpowered that you're actually expected to run away from the other enemies in this level instead of actually fighting them. Because if you even try to fight them, you will get dominated. A game's combat should not be so broken that I'm forced to flee from standard enemies. I'm the goddamn Batman, and I'm being forced to run away from common street punks. Did you ever see the episode of Batman the Animated Series where Batman ran away from the Joker's thugs because, despite being trained in every martial art known to mankind, he was unable to subdue 2 of the Joker's low-life thugs in unarmed combat? No, neither did I. It wasn't until I started getting footage for this review that I lucked out and finished this level. It turns out that you can get around the game's glitchy combat and use special attacks if you take a step or 2 away from your opponent. Why? I don't know. I also had to beat this level twice because I forgot to go back to the main menu and save, and the game has no autosave feature. Why? I don't know. While I was trying to beat this level, I used an infinite gadget cheat, and I finally found out what nets do. Nets instantly take down enemies, but they don't work against the enemies in this particular level. Why? I don't know! At the end of the level, you have another FPS gadget mode boss fight, and here's my point about the gadget mode. If I took away the Batman icons in the corner of the screen, would you ever guess that this is a Batman game? The answer is no. So then you go to the Joker's blimp, where you solve 2 insultingly easy puzzles, and you have a remarkably unchallenging boss fight against the Joker. Then the Joker throws himself out a window to try and kill himself, and you have to do this little free-fall fight to save him. If you screw up this level, the game scolds you for letting the Joker die by saying, "Death is not justice." I actually stopped for a few moments when I read that. This game is 5 minutes away from being over, and now the game sees fit to lecture me about how killing is never morally justified. This game has had no story beyond Batman punches people in the face, and now the game decides to have a point. Dude, screw you. If you want to see this moral dilemma done properly, go watch Batman Beyond Return of the Joker. But this game, if you're going to address this issue, do more than just casually mention it at the very end of the game. So you catch the Joker, he gets thrown back into Arkham Asylum, Commissioner Gordon says he's glad the Joker is still alive. Screw you and your non-existent morality message, you stupid game. I'll tell you a secret, Batman Vengeance sucks! Its combat is awful, its platforming is dull, and the story revolves around a mystery that takes 5 minutes to solve. I think that this game gets a free ride because it's based off the Batman animated series, but the animated series was so much better than this. To be honest, the first 3 episodes of the game are not terrible, the combat sucks and the platforming is bland and dull, but in the last 2 episodes the combat becomes so broken that the mild enjoyment that the game has to offer gets sucked out and it gets replaced with controller snapping frustration. All in all, I do not recommend Batman Vengeance. It took me 11 years to find this out, but the game is just crap.